44% of Canadians over the age of 20 now have at least one chronic health condition. This was a study put out in 2016 by the Government of Canada. This is almost half of our population, half of our adult population has at least one chronic health condition. Some of them have more than one. And when they say one chronic health condition, P.S., it's one of the top 10 chronic health conditions, never mind the other ones. The majority of adults in this day and age are staring at a chronic disease or the starting of a development of a chronic disease. This is kind of serious. What is common is not necessarily normal. I think it's the body asking us to change how we do our things. When the body is sending these chronic disease flares or inflammatory things, I think it's a call to arms. It's a call for us to change our ways. So let's get into free radical damage and why and how this plays into things. So when this chronic inflammation sets in, right? You have that whole cycle that is the same thing as the saber-toothed tiger that happens. So when this chronic inflammation sets in, it starts to trigger those blood sugar imbalances and those hormonal imbalances. Now, what happens over time, if you understand that cortisol is one of the hormones released, as is insulin, what happens is that over the course of time, many, many years, this insulin that's released in the bloodstream is forever knocking on the cell wall. Forever, there's a knock at the door to open up and take in the sugar. And if you have any children, or if you've ever witnessed, when your children start to knock at the door, mum, 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 it's the same thing. You don't hear it after a while. You lose the sensitivity of hearing the mum, mum, mum. It's the same thing with insulin. When your cells hear insulin knocking at the door all day long, they stop to hear it. They can't hear it anymore. And that's what's called losing the sensitivity to insulin. Or you're now insulin insensitive or insensitive to insulin. It's not that you don't like insulin, it's that the cells can't hear it knock anymore because it's been knocking too long at the door. And this is where the problem lies, because now you have extra insulin coursing around the veins. That's not where it really belongs. You also have this extra blood sugar, these glucose molecules that are coursing around in your bloodstream. This glucose is not meant to hang out in the bloodstream. It's meant to be absorbed into your cells and utilized as fuel. These blood sugar, this glucose that courses around, well, they're like shards of glass. They're like sandpaper. If they don't get absorbed into the muscle cells for use right away, they start to walk around and sling, whoop, they sort of rough up the veins, the capillaries, the blood vessels, the arteries. This is what is at the root of the majority of chronic cardiovascular disease. Atherosclerosis, it is all blood sugar imbalance. The deposit of these extra sugars that your body cannot now get into the cells is behind the development of cataracts. The inability to get the blood sugar into the cells of your muscles is now a contributing factor to things like PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. It is also behind Alzheimer's and dementia. These blood sugars start to contribute to damage on a cellular level. And that's why inflammation is a problem. Not the inflammatory process per se, although the more you have that system in place, the more it triggers the turning on of this reaction. But it's those blood sugar imbalances that are at the root of the troubles. Now, if you have hormones out of balance, this also starts to contribute to the blood sugar imbalances, because when your hormones are out of balance, now you start to have an imbalance amongst all of them. Because when one hormone is out, all of them start to feel it. Now, if you understand that sleep is governed by melatonin, which is a hormone, melatonin is the queen hormone that keeps all of the other ones in check. Well, if you can't sleep right, because at 2 a.m. you have a saber-toothed tiger that showed up because you've run out of glucose now, well, now that 2 a.m. wake-up call of like, oh my gosh, I need to make all of the lists. Did I get all of this done? I didn't hand in this paper last Friday. I have this thing due on Friday. Did I even read the chapters due? When you have this list of things to do, you are now in a stress state. This blood sugar has now been released into your bloodstream because your brain was it perceived it was about to die. And now your hormones triggered this release of cortisol, which now gets you on a steeper roller coaster ride of blood sugars, and it now just is a rolling snowball and becomes this monstrous boulder. So if you understand that blood sugars and hormonal imbalances are actually what the problem is behind inflammation, it's not inflammation itself, but it's the triggers that it contributes to. And P.S. it takes a long time to get there. It's a very slow process. Then you understand that when these blood sugars and hormonal imbalances show up, what they are contributing to, that blood sugar imbalance and the sandpaper and the shards of glass reaction, that is free radical damage. That damaging effect, that damaging impact on that cellular level, that is what we call free radical damage. That's the issue, and that is where inflammatory troubles are. It's because of this free radical damage. And what this free radical damage produces is it opens up cells to more oxygen and opens up the inside of cells that shouldn't have access to oxygen. And now oxygen gets in, and this is called oxidative stress. That's where the problem is. So when you're talking inflammation, instead of getting too complicated with the terms of free radical damage and oxidative stress, just know that when inflammation is in the picture, the end result is that free radical damage and the oxidative stress. It's why when we're talking about reducing inflammation, you eat an anti-inflammatory diet. Well, one of the tenets of it is to eat lots of color and eat lots of variety from the plant world. So eating the rainbow. Well, the more colors you eat on your plate, Cheetos don't count, but the more color you have on your plate, the more antioxidants you're providing your body. Those antioxidants help to undo the oxidative stress. They are antioxidants. They protect against oxidative stress.